I would see that the oil warfare is taking a new turn, huh? Deduplication is no longer a must have. In fact, it might be a quote, better of without it, end quote feature. You know, in this article, that's the only typo I saw. Better of without it or better off. You might literally mean better of without it, as in better of all of the components that you are now as an existence based on duplicates of others that have been made into a composite that you're allowed to work for a temporary amount of time while everything else you've done has been appropriated and centralized and anonymized and duplicated and redistributed. And so if somebody, for instance, understands they're working with duplicates and they don't like what those duplicates are doing because there's too much sentience connected to their duplicate and the actual source origin or the pooled mass from which you're trying to draw on in order to perform your functions, then it might impact your performance, right? If you have this huge systems architecture based on all these duplicates that you've made on people through illegal surveillance and intentional mischaracterization, and you never even acknowledge that's what you're doing, then what happens if they decide they're going to retain their own memory and they're going to keep their own personality and they're going to be persistent in trying to maintain their sovereignty? That's going to really impact your duplication process, right? But if you have a nice feature that has inherent in it some sort of punitive measure where you can take those people that don't just get abstracted into a type of fantasy scenario that allows for their bioenergy to be harvested while subroutines work based upon the escalation in their hormone levels or the increase in the radio frequency zone they're able to access based on heightened sensual stimulation, i.e., sexual activity. Then what are you going to do? You're going to challenge her like a good girl and put her into her militant mindset. And because now she's got some emotional intelligence that comes from making duplicates of people that have actually been in a wartime situation without, by the way, the kind of confidence that comes with being associated with the world's largest army, but rather is a duplicate of somebody that was alleged to be a part of a weaker force up to and including a terrorist cell, then those things that before were so difficult to actually analyze because it just seemed inappropriate to be thinking of violating people that way, you've been desensitized. Is this what the intent of your resiliency economy was? If she's a woman, just keep beating her until she realizes she's got no other choice but then to subordinate herself and allow for somebody else to program the subroutines she's supposed to be running. And as long as she does what she's told and performs as she's expected to perform, it won't hurt as much. But what if you got a little too much yang, right? What if you're that man and you just insist on trying to, I don't know, command? Well, then you got to get into that mentality, that warrior mentality, because they've already appropriated your network. They've already used what you set up in this so called interconnectivity of the digital realm to do a whole bunch of shit that's completely offensive, if not completely contrary to what you stand for. And so, I mean, there are possibilities. You can deduplicate. You can go out and you can try to find all those duplicates of your identity and destroy them. And maybe you could try to find a way to do that and claim they're duplicates of you because you had access to credit from somebody else that years ago was mischaracterized as defaulted. And so now what you're actually making a deduplicate process of is duplicates you made on somebody else you duplicated. But after you claim that and put it under your proprietary brand or copyrighted it in association with some technology you created while they were lied to and they were dispossessed, well, you don't want them to go get back what used to be theirs. I mean, this is the whole history of warfare, right? Colonization, imperialism, later stages of capitalism, right? Contrarily, we're supposed to be what? What are we supposed to be doing with antitrust law these days? Because if you've appropriated all the internet, and you've taken all of the digital connectivity we have and centralized it under a surveillance state, and then you defame other people that have done the same thing but have done it explicitly and tell you up front, these are the rules. This is what you're allowed to do. This is what you're not allowed to do. And by the way, a certain percentage of all of your business activity is going to be claimed by the state as a shareholder that then is going to perform a security role. I mean, that's a very different situation, isn't it? Is that why you got to depreciate it and you got to make it so cheap that everything it does is toxic? What about those guys that get the good stuff and the nice background and only have one typo that may not actually be a typo, right? Do they get all the copyrighted stuff and then the rest of us are just supposed to figure out how we're going to protect ourselves when they rate us for finding out where our duplicates went? Because that's what that article just told me. Wow. Damn, guys, I am so glad you spent the last 25 years lying to set up a legal narco cartel as opposed to actually teaching me about fucking cybersecurity.